directions. And so welcome to Art 117. I just hit the record button. We're going to be talking today about this wonderful thing that I started talking about on Wednesday, how to actually try to design a chair. How do you design something from scratch? And, you know, most designers actually don't start from scratch on something. All of art and design, you know, throughout human history is mostly us trying to improve on something that is already existing. There are very, very, very few brand new, absolutely new ideas that have never been done before and that have to be created from scratch. So, you know, with a chair, you know, there's lots of chairs laying around here. And I asked you guys to maybe consider the idea of, uh, you know, trying to find your own favorite chair. And I did get a little bit of a question back on that. What if I don't have a favorite chair? And it's like, well, you know, some of you guys, most of you guys have grown up with chairs in your households, either the rocking chair that your mother rocked you in when you were a baby and, you know, read you stories and rubbed your back and all that kind of stuff. The easy chair, perhaps that a father was sitting in after work every night, and maybe it was a recliner or something, and maybe, you know, you spent some time in that chair. Movie chairs, you know, chairs, the actual seating at the theater, at the movie theater, maybe that's a really cool chair for you and you really like the kind of wiggly wobbly, semi-reclining ability in that movie house chair. If there are chairs in one of the lobbies of one of the schools that you've been in, even here in Eden Hall, I've got several different kinds of chairs in the lobby in Eden Hall that you can come in and just use as a basis for, as a point of departure for this project. And I'm going to walk us through this whole idea of trying to come up with your favorite chair and then, you know, measuring that favorite chair to get a set of proportions and measurements, you know, for your, as kind of a point of departure for designing your own chair. So how am I going to do this? That's the part that I didn't quite know about. So I've got a chair sitting next to me right here on the floor, and I've got a camera lined up on that chair. So I'm going to flip back and forth between this view and that view. And I'm also going to be drawing this out and talking about some stuff. So then I'm going to flip to the bird's eye view so that you can look at what I'm doing on the tabletop in front of me. And we'll kind of get a good idea of how to do this stuff. So let's do that. I'm going to flip, and if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and unmute your mic and shout it out, because I've turned up my volume so I can hear you now. And so I'm going to start doing different stuff. That's my cardboard chair sitting in the corner of the room. And so I'm going to walk over there with a measuring tape and start taking measurements off of that chair and writing down the measurements. It's just as if that was a real chair. So you can do this with any kind of a real chair that you have, even the task chair or kitchen chair that you're sitting on, you know, at home right now. It doesn't have to be a chair with arms, but just a chair so that you start to get the measurements and start to understand the proportions of a chair. And so now I'm going to change the video again to another view here. And so we're going to come to my tabletop and talk about this stuff. And I've got to get kind of lined up here so I can do this stuff. And I wanted to talk about, let's see if I can do this and actually make this pretty so that you guys can see chair proportions. And let's make this an ampersand because I'm getting so, you know, whatever. And measurements, MEASURMENTS, measurements. So we're going to look at a basic chair and try to figure this stuff out. So I just went ahead and drew myself kind of freehand in really, really light pencil so that I could erase things and move lines around. I drew myself a chair. And so I'm going to kind of redraw it in pen as we're talking about it. So once again, the idea of the isometric projection is to bring one corner of the object, the closest corner to you is going to be the one that's kind of in the middle of the drawing. because the side view of the chair is going to run off in this direction at about a 30-degree angle. And the front view of this chair is going to run off in this direction at about a 30-degree angle. And all this stuff is going to be kind of, they're all on the same line. So a lot of these things are going to line up with each other, and it's going to be wonderful. So if I've simplified my chair just a little bit for the sake of today. And so I'm going to kind of draw in this idea of what's the closest thing to me, what's the thing that's in front of everything else. Well, that's the side of the chair. That's the front edge of this chair, the front corner edge. And it's this front arm of the chair. So I'm just kind of drawing that in because it overlaps everything else. Everything else kind of lives behind this form. All of this other stuff lives behind. I can see this first. I'm going to draw this in. My verticals are all vertical. They're all parallel to the edges of to the side edges of the piece of paper. So all the verticals are parallel to each other, and they're parallel to the paper. All my diagonals are understood to be, parallel to the floor because this object is sitting on the floor, but it's running away from me at about a 30-degree angle. So all of my horizontal edges are going to line up with each other, and they're all going to be parallel to each other. And so we can always check that when we're drawing other things. We want to make sure that all of our lines are kind of all going to be parallel to all of our other lines. And we can start by getting one object kind of nailed down here. For me, it just happened to be the arm of this chair. But I'm just going to throw this other stuff in here pretty fast. We've got a seat element in here, and I can't see part of it because the arm is in the way. But if I was to extend this ... over here, I would extend it, on that line, and that line is parallel to all of these other lines running out 30 degrees, in this direction. And the seat is going to wind up being, parallel to all of these other lines, ... running up this way at 30 degrees, parallel to these lines. And so that's how this seat box is going to be understood back here in space. I'm going to run some more of the edges of this seat so that the back edge of this seat is parallel to this line, and this bottom edge of the seat is parallel to this line. And we've got, of course, our back edges, the hidden three-dimensional edges volume of the box that kind of creates my arm for the armchair right there. So you guys get the idea of how this stuff all works. And so I'm just going to kind of throw this stuff together real quick. So this is kind of a drawing of a chair that's sitting here that I can see. And you actually will have to spend some time doing this. I'm running these arms on the chair at least halfway back, on this, so that they overlap the side of the backrest of the chair, because they have to kind of glue on to the sides of the chair, and they help really create a lot more stability and structure when the arm of my chair actually glues on to the back of the chair and the seat of the chair, because that creates a unitized kind of a structure, which is really nice. Anyway, too much about that. Let's start with measurements. Now, I keep talking about 17 inches as a seat height, and so I would want to go over and actually confirm that and measure my seat height over here, and not that camera, another camera. And so here I go. So what are the things that we can use to measure a real live chair in reality? And so what I'd like to talk about are things like a tape measure. We're going to be using a tape measure quite a bit in measuring and cutting out our large pieces to make the pieces and parts for the chair. So you might have to buy one of these if you don't already have one. You really don't need something more than a 10-foot tape measure. I've always found the 25-foot tape measures are super handy in life. To do construction, to do remodeling, to build larger things, to be able to measure pretty good sized things up to the size of a camper trailer, a car, things in the driveway, things in your house, including flooring and stuff. 25-foot tape measure is a really, really handy kind of a thing. And this one, it only has English measurements on it. It really only has feet and inches on it. So those of you who are using the metric system, I'm really sorry about that. You're welcome to use a metric tape measure if you can find one. And you're welcome to do this entire project in metric measurements if you want it. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. If you do sewing and happen to have one of these kinds of tape measures, it's exactly the same thing. This is 60 inches long. It's a soft tape measure, and we can definitely use one of these things to measure out the pieces and parts for the chair. So this would be a perfectly fine kind of a tape measure that you can use, but you're going to need something to be able to measure. And so I'm going to come in here and confirm a couple of things. I want to confirm my 17-inch seat height, which I have. I want to also look at what the width of this chair seat is. How wide is my butt? And how wide do I have to have it? This one actually says 21 inches. So I've got 21 inches by about 22 inches. So 21 inches wide, 22 inches deep would give me the dimensions of this seat, the height and the width and the depth of this seat. And I'm going to go over and plug those into my drawing for just a minute. So I'm going to come back to you guys let's see here. Okay. And so I'm 17 inches high. I'm 21 inches deep. No, I'm sorry. I was 22 inches deep and I was 21 inches wide here. Now in drafting, we usually tend to indicate our measurements inside the drawing. This is a mechanical drawing so that it includes all the measurements that we're working with. So I'm going to put the number 21 here, and then I'm going to draw little arrows out to the corners of where this shape actually goes. And so this, oh God, that's really small. You guys can't see that, but this is the number 21 right here. So 21 inches wide are arrows with little arrowheads on them. And I don't know if I'm actually focusing that well on this or not. So that's 21 inches. This is 22 inches. This is 17 inches. And I would just go back and measure all the other measurements on my chair. For instance, the width of my arms. I know that the arm is 6 inches wide. So I'm just going to, indicate 6 inches. Sometimes when you're doing drafting, you can extend the line of a measurement outside of the thing. Like these little tick marks here extend the lines of the dimensions of the arm of the chair, extending it straight out. And then sometimes you can even put the, if it's a really small thing and you can't cram all of your arrows and everything else inside of those two lines, you can reverse your arrows, you can throw them outside. And so you can indicate that this is a 6 inch wide measurement with these arrows outside of it. You get the idea. I'm going to go back and measure the sides, the other dimensions of my arms and stick them on here, and I'm going to get the back height on here so that we've got a set of measurements for this. So I'm going to end this. Sorry, but I have to switch cameras to do that. So, and I took all of these measurements off of a real chair to begin with. So this is 27 inches off the ground here, 27 inches high, and this measurement is 32 inches deep. And so I'm going to go write these down here on my drawing. I'm going to transfer those measurements to the drawing. So I am 27 inches high, 27 inches from here to here, and put my little arrows in there so that I know what that is. And this, I'm going to extend this line down here a little bit here and here, and I'm going to put my 32 inches right here. So this lets me know that the depth of my arm on my chair is 32 inches deep. And now I'm just going to take a couple of measurements off my seat back, and then I'll have the whole thing all done. Sorry, this is so boring as I have to do this. Back of the seat down to the floor is, it's 35 inches. I could go 36 just to make it a nice round number, because 36 is 3 feet. And then this should be the same width as the seat. So we are looking at 24 inches up here. Oh, that's because I've got this kind of angled. I see what that is. I'm gonna, for the way that my drawing is, I'm gonna go 21 inches. So 36 and 21. Coming back over to my desktop so I can plug in these last two numbers, and we're gonna be good here. So if the seat height right here is 21 inches wide, and I don't have a funny angle going on here, I'm going to go 21 inches for this width right here. And so that's that. And I'm going to plug in, where can I even find myself? I'm going to run a line out here from the back of the chair, from the floor all the way up to the top edge of the chair. And I'm going to plug in my last measurement over here, 36 inches, to give me the height of the chair from the floor all the way up to the top of the back of the seat. So now I have basically measured out a lot of the measurements of my chair. Now, what do I want to do here in terms of measurements? Well, I'd really like to make a scale model of my chair first. And when I want to make a scale model, it's going to be something that is a uniform, mathematical reduction in size of the chair, so that I can make something small enough so that I can, manipulate it in my hands, and I can sort of check, to make sure that everything is the right shape and the right size and proportion, and it's all going together well. And I can build this thing as a scale model to test, all of my construction methods before I start making it full size. This is a really nice way to test all of the little things in my design before I go big. So I wanted to suggest to you guys that if we are doing a scale model in English measurements, that we make our scale model 1 to 12, a 1/12 scale model. I'm going to take this little guy and I'm going to go put it over on my chair for just a second so we can talk about that. Let's see. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So here is the little tiny scale model in terms of the chair. That scale model was supposed to be, and I think it is, 1/12. It is 1 to 12 scale. And so 1 inch equals 12 inches, or 1 inch equals 1 foot in that scale. And so if you took that little model and multiplied it by 12, then you would have the full-size chair. And I think you can see that you could probably take, 12 of these little chairs and stack them up, 12 high, to get you the height of the back of the chair. I think that that this thing all scales out just really nicely. And so that's the whole concept of a scale model, is that all of the measurements in the scale model are in proportion to all of the measurements in the full size thing. So we've got 1 inch equals 1 foot English measurement. If you're going to do this in metric measurements, I would have a scale model that would be scaled 1 to 10. 1 centimeter equals 10 centimeters, because that scales up really nicely. You'll probably wind up, if you do it all in metric, in centimeters, your scale model is going to be just a little bit bigger, because, to be able to work with, for instance, the width of the arm on a chair. I would usually go 6 inches wide just because it's easier to bend cardboard into boxes that are about 6 inches wide or so. It's just easier to manage. I can get inside of this box if I need to put reinforcing brackets inside of the box. I can get my arm inside of there. 6 inches wide gives me something that is wide enough to rest my arm on comfortably as a dimension for the chair. So translating that to metric, I might go, 2.54 is the multiplier. So, if I'm 6 inches wide, 2 is 12 centimeters plus 5.4. So I'm pretty much up to 18 or so centimeters wide. Maybe just make it 20 centimeters to make it a nice even round number or something. But you could, you can kind of see how you're really, really close between inches and centimeters. And so, a 6 inch wide arm would be about 18 to 20 centimeters wide. And we would change all of our measurements into metric if you wanted to do that as a 1 to 10 scale model. So for every actual measurement in centimeters, you would divide by 10 to get the size that you'd want to do in the scale model. And we do that, when we're using inches and feet in the English too, only we're going to always divide by 12. So if the arm of the chair is 6 inches wide, a 6 inch wide chair, okay, is going to equal a 6 inch wide arm on the chair is 1/2 inch for the scale model. And as you can see, this is about 1/2 inch wide because I scaled that down to be 1/2 inch wide. And so some of these other measurements here, I've got 32 inches for the depth of the arm. 32 inches divided by 12 is going to get me down into the 3.5 inch area. In fact, we could just do that to just prove that right now, because I like to do it to prove it. Okay, so 32 divided by 12 equals, no, that's not right. Let's try that again. Clear. 32 divided by 12 equals 2.6. So this was supposed to be 2.6 inches if I started with the correct one. And I'm kind of around 3 3/4 inches here. So I have, because I made this into a trapezoid shape instead of a rectangle, it got a little bit wider in this proportion up here. And so as you change your shapes from a rectangle into other kinds of shapes, whether they're triangles or trapezoids or some kind of other shape, you're going to be changing, that proportion a little bit. And so that's going to be different anyway. But basically, when I've got my a basic chair design kind of figured out, or if I'm actually copying an existing chair that I can find someplace, like in the Eden Hall lobby, I can draw the chair, then I can measure all the measurements of the chair, and then I can convert all of those measurements to 1/12 scale. And so I would wind up with all the measurements I would need to make my scale model. And when we come back on Monday, I'm going to actually be making the scale model and talking about box forms and the idea of how do we plan out and how do we fold up something from flat material like cardboard, or in this case, cardstock, into something that is a three-dimensional object, and then we glue it together. So I'm going to do the actual demonstration of making the scale model of the chair on Monday. But for now, I wanted to get you guys started with this idea, because if you find yourself a chair, or go online and download yourself a picture of a chair, and then come and find some kind of an actual chair that you can take some actual chair measurements off of. Most chairs in the world, most armchairs are going to be really, really close to the same in terms of measurements. A task chair, an office chair might have a slightly narrower seat or not quite as deep a seat, but most task chairs, or kitchen chairs are going to have a 17-inch high seat height, and they're going to have something that's going to be about 20 by 20 inches for the seat of the chair. And your arm heights, are really going to be somewhere around 30 or 32 inches off the floor for the arms of a chair. And the back, did I say 32? What? I got to check that measurement again. I got 27 here. They're going to be anywhere from 26 to 27 inches for the arm height. And I've got 36 inches high for my the back of my chair. So you're going to be in anywhere from 30 to almost 40 inches tall for the chair back. And if you go with a tall chair back, that's going to be a lot more like a dining room chair with a really tall, much more formal kind of a back on the chair. Some people really like tall backed chairs because they make you think like you're sitting on a throne or some kind of a very special chair. And so if you really like a tall backed chair, or if you like the idea of being able to lean your head back on the chair back and have it give support to the back of your head and neck, then you need to make a chair that's taller to be able to support your head and neck. If you don't like leaning back in a chair, if you feel like it's uncomfortable and that the chair back cuts into the back of your head or your neck, then you want to make sure that the chair back is lower than your neck and only comes up perhaps as high as the tops of your shoulders or even the middle of your shoulder blades. And so usually something that comes up 30, 32 inches high off the ground is going to give you that. Because if we take our 17-inch seat height and we subtract it from our 32-inch seat back height, we're still working with something that's around 15, 16 inches in terms of the proportion from the seat to the top of the seat back. And most people need about 16 or 17 inches of height of a chair back to support their back comfortably, all the way up to about the middle of the shoulder blades on the back of the chair. You can see that we get pretty deep into the idea of proportions and kind of translating this into the ergonomics. I said ergonomics the other day, and I still, ergonomics is a big deal. That's the idea, that's the study of how human proportions are best served by designing working surfaces and sitting surfaces and reach distances and stuff so that it's all very comfortable for you to use as an end user. So that if you're designing a desk and a workstation for somebody to use in an office kind of a situation, the height of the desk and the height of the chair and the height of the chair back and the chair arms and everything else are very, very important to design ergonomically to reduce your stress and to reduce your fatigue so that you're the most productive and the happiest worker that you can possibly be in that situation. Ergonomics is about designing around the human person to make a very comfortable and very capable product for us to be able to use easily and without fatigue. And so when we come back to chair design, we want to try to design our chairs with ergonomics in mind. How do we make this thing comfortable? How do we make it, just a little bit more user-friendly? And a lot of that, has to do with these very slight angles that I indicated in the PowerPoint presentation the other day when I talked about that the seat back on most chairs does not go straight up and down. It is not a vertical line for the back of the chair. Usually a seat back is angled 5 to 15 degrees. It's angled 5 degrees, about like that, if it's a task chair or a kitchen chair. And it's angled more like, 10 or 15 degrees if it's an occasional chair. That's the kind of chair that you would have in your living room that is not a recliner, or, a not a recliner chair, but a, what's the other kind of chair? It's just it's just a comfortable armchair. Basically, has a 10 to 15 degree angle of incline for the seat back in the upright position, so that when you sit in this chair, you will be sitting kind of back into the chair a little bit, instead of just sitting right on top of the chair. And as a matter of fact, the seat, the angle of the seat is also going to have a slight angle if you want to make it more of a lounge chair. So we have, let's see, this is a 15-degree angle, you know, on this, on the back of the chair is 15 degrees, and this could be a 5-degree, you know, angle, you know, from the front point of the chair to the back portion of the chair seat where it attaches to the seat back. This could be a 5-degree angle, angling down, so that you kind of sit back and you slide back into the chair, and the chair holds you and nests you just a little bit more, and you don't feel like you're sitting absolutely straight on a flat surface that is just parallel to the ground. When you change the angle of the chair seat by 5 degrees, it suddenly feels so much more comforting, so much more you know, inviting and relaxing for you, the user. And so these tiny little things, 15 degrees for the seat back, 5 degrees for the seat surface, are a big deal. And then if you come up here to the arm and you want to make the arm of the chair parallel to the seat of the chair, you could also put that 5 degrees angle, I'm making a mess of this 5-degree angle on the top edge of the chair arm, and then it's parallel to the seat, so that, you know, the person sitting in the chair, let's draw a person sitting in this chair here. There's a person sitting in a chair, and their arms come down, and their arms, you know, sit and kind of, you know, hands and whatnot are sitting on the chair, and their little head is here because they're, you know, they're playing a video game or watching TV or something like that. So just having these slight angles to give a little bit more of support and a little bit more of angled support to the sitter can make a world of difference in the comfort value of the chair. You don't have to do that. You're sure welcome to make a chair that just has straight edges and 90-degree angles on it, and that would be fine. But as you start to build angles into your chair, it becomes a lot more tricky to try to get this to work in a 3-dimensional model. I found that I forgot on my final chair, on my full-size chair, I forgot to make the or I guess I forgot to do it here too. When I was making these boxes, they're at a slight angle because these boxes are kind of fitting in to an angled seat that I started with. So I made my my seat kind of trapezoidal and angled, and I did a really good job of building the seat form that way. And then as I built the box for the back of my chair, again, that was a trapezoidal seat form that paralleled and glued exactly together with the seat. So the seat and the seat back glued together. And here are the two of them glued together right here along this seam right here. When I made these sides, I worked really hard to get these things to be trapezoids, and I thought I was all done. When I glued this stuff together, I found out that I didn't actually make this thing into a parallelogram. And so I had to actually do a little cutting and editing to get these things to finally fit together. Sometimes, you know, even professionals, not that I'm all that great at professional, designers forget, you know, a little bit about that. So that meant that this angle was not quite perpendicular to the ground, that this faded away a little bit and this goes downhill just a little bit this way, and this one went downhill just a little bit this way. And when this got when the seat back got attached to the seat, this surface falls away a little bit. It's not perfectly parallel to the bottom edge of the chair. So you're going to see that if you start getting into angles, slight angles, we either have to manage all of those slight angles in the construction process, or we're going to wind up with, angles that are just slightly off and not perfectly parallel to other kinds of things, to the floor, basically. And that's not the worst thing in the world. That doesn't hurt my feelings too much. I'm going to go back to the other chair, the big chair, the other chair, just to talk about that for a second. So here I am. Let's sit in the chair. I have to make sure that you guys can see me from there. So yes, when I went ahead and designed the big chair, I wound up not making the seat have any angle to it. So the seat is totally parallel to the floor. My seat is parallel to the floor. And these top surfaces of the arms are also totally parallel to the floor. I think it's nice to have the tops of the arms parallel to what the seat is. And it really doesn't matter what that is. If the seat is going to have a slight angle to it, then the tops of the arms should also have a slight angle to them. And they should be the exact same angle, so that you get a little sense of kind of sameness to the feel of the chair between the angle of the seat and the angle of the top of the arm. So that's kind of a thing. When I was designing this chair, let me just make sure that it's looking good to you. Once again, I built the seat first, and then I built the back, and then attached these two boxes together. And then I designed the two arm boxes and built them, and then glued them on and attached them to the existing seat and back. And as you can see, I forgot to make the arms a parallelogram so that this would be absolutely parallel to the floor. And as a result, I was a little bit long on my outside edge down here. I'm kind of drifting away. I'm kind of falling away with about a 5-degree angle on the top edge of this chair. It's not a big deal. It's almost imperceptible up here, and I don't really care about it. And I think I went down to the bottom, and I actually, with my craft knife, I trimmed the bottom outside edges of these two arms so that they were parallel to the floor, because I really wanted these boxes to all be transferring all of the load and all of the weight straight down to the floor, so that the cardboard did as good a job as possible of being able to transfer load and to be able to support the weight of somebody sitting in the chair. So I'm coming back to my desk, and I'm going to sit down and bring the camera up to me, because we've been doing this for 50 minutes now. It's already 10 minutes to 10. And I still haven't actually written up the first assignment for this thing. So I'm going to write up the first assignment, which is the idea of the isometric projection. And, you're going to have to do some kind of, investigation with an existing chair so that you can make some measurements on an existing chair and know what, all of these chair measurements and chair proportions are. Eden Hall is unlocked, and you can come over and use the lobby if you want to. There are several chairs in the Eden Hall lobby that you can take measurements off of, so that you have a basic standard kind of a shape of a chair that you can then work off of. The lounge chairs in Eden Hall are all worn out, and so their cushion heights really sag down and don't go all the way down to the bottom of the cushion heights in the chair, or you'll make a chair that's really, really uncomfortable. You'll probably want to start with a standard seat height of 16 or 17 inches. If you are a tall person, you're really going to want to have a seat height of 17 inches to start with. If you're an elderly person, you need, a lift chair. You need a seat height that's even higher so that it's an easier chair to get out of. Young people can just bounce off of a chair where the seat height is down at 12 inches. Old people can't climb out of a chair like that. older people need a 17-inch high chair just so that we can easily stand up out of the chair and get on with our day. So that's a big deal. So you'll want to, over the weekend, find yourself a chair, get yourself some kind of a measuring tape of some kind, and be able to take the measurements of a chair so that you understand the heights of the seat back and the seat, and the width of and depth of the seat, and the height and width of the back, and where the arms are attached, and what is the height of the arms measured from the ground, from the floor. What is the floor to top of the arm height, and is that comfortable to you? And what is the width of the arm? We need to get all of these measurements kind of drawn in, and you can do this, in a sketch, and then refine the sketch into a much, kind of more proper isometric view of a chair. I'll take some time to write this up as an assignment and stick it in coursework, but we are thinking about and starting to wrap our brain around how to do a chair. Where do you start, and how do you try to create the proportions of a chair so that we can somehow design a chair? We can plan and design and understand the chair so that we can then make the scale model and go from the scale model then to the full-size chair. That's kind of where we're going. These videos and these class presentations should help you, walk you through that process in case you get into the weeds at all. And I'm happy to answer questions along the way. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. I'll see you guys again on Monday morning, and hopefully in a couple of hours or so, I will have this assignment typed up and entered into coursework so that you've got an actual assignment that you're working on. But over the weekend, we want to do a little chair research and a little bit of chair measuring so that we can kind of understand the measurements and the proportions of all of the pieces and parts of a chair. Until Monday, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Bye-bye.